let's pretend you're me, back in 2018. First off, poor choice. Should've went with someone a little more emotionally stable. The newest Kirby game is being released, Kirby Star Allies, on the hot new console, the Nintendo Switch. You've always enjoyed Kirby, ever since playing Kirby 64 all those years ago. You missed out on the last few games and decided to jump back in for this next big console title. The game is visually amazing, a huge step from the previous series entries, which makes sense because they were on handhelds. You can mix some abilities together, kinda like Kirby 64. It even has local 4-player co-op, which is a rarity these days, so bonus points for that. You buy the game day one, play through the story mode with 3 other players, beat the final boss, and stop. Well, that was okay, you say to yourself. You put the game down and don't touch it ever again. This is especially weird because you always play the bonus content in Kirby games, getting all the hidden collectibles, the arena, all that stuff. You're quite the completionist in most video games, come to think about it, except RPGs, I guess. But no, for some reason, Kirby Star Allies gets deleted from your Switch and you never go back to it. It's now 2021. You run a slightly successful YouTube channel. In between the avalanche of thirsty weebs breaking down your door with Mega Man related requests, you decide you want to take a break for a bit. Play something light, something fun, something pink. You glance through the variety of Kirby games in your collection and stumble upon Star Allies once again. You think to yourself, hey, didn't this game get a whole bunch of free updates after I stopped playing? I wonder what kind of things they added. So you re-download the game, grab your Pro Controller, because you're heading in solo this time, and open up Notepad on your second monitor. Time to give Kirby Star Allies a second chance. Okay, stop me if you heard this one. Our favorite adorable round vacuum cleaner is relaxing under a tree somewhere in Dreamland. Cosmic horrors approach and everything goes to hell, forcing Kirby to stop napping and start sucking. Seriously though, I know people are way into Kirby's bizarrely deep lore, so let's do this proper. Out in the far reaches of space, a cloaked priest offers prayer to a large crystal heart, overflowing with malicious energy. This is an amalgamation of wills and emotions known as a Jamba heart. The priest, named Highness, along with his servants, the 3 mage sisters, are working to complete the heart and resurrect their god, Void Termina, an unfeeling ancient monster that was sealed away long ago by 4 heroes wielding heart-shaped spears. But when something goes wrong during the summoning process, the Jamba heart is shattered. Its remains flung across the universe where they begin corrupting all living creatures they come into contact with, save for a single, untainted piece of the Jamba heart, which lands directly on the peacefully napping Kirby himself. I guess for the sake of completeness, I should still break down how Kirby games work. People who play Kirby are not my usual audience, so most of you bear with me while I help the newcomers among us. Kirby Star Allies, like every other mainline Kirby game, is a 2D platformer. You progress from stage to stage through colorful and occasionally terrifying worlds to save Kirby's home planet, Popstar, from some manner of dark force and its accompanying minions. Contain your surprise, but you primarily play as Kirby, a cute 8 or so inch tall sphere lad of indeterminate origin who likes sleeping, eating, and stopping destruction on a galactic scale. Being a balloon sort of thing, with naught but tiny nubs for hands and feet, Kirby isn't particularly fierce on his own. Hell, Kirby's light enough that just by breathing in, he can effortlessly float around the level on a whim. You can hold the trigger to have Kirby block incoming attacks, and he can also slide in a pinch, but that's about it for his base kit. Kirby's real power stems from his ability to inhale everything. Air, food, enemies, rocks, my will to live, your mom, doesn't matter. Kirby will jam it into his bottomless facehole. He can either launch these objects from his mouth at high speeds, or, the more valuable use for all that junk, copy abilities. Through an, as of yet, unexplained function of Kirby's anatomy, the chubby pink puff can absorb the copy essence from within a creature's very soul and take it for his own. Their spirit, their lives, their individuality, all lost to the void. It's less mentally scarring than it sounds. Look, Kirby gets a silly hat! Depending on the enemy absorbed, Kirby gains one of 28 different power sets, each with its own diverse moveset and elemental properties. The variety of movement and combat skills, plus the ease of which Kirby can switch between them, adds a ton of much welcome variety to a series that isn't exactly overflowing with challenge or complexity. Kirby games are a lot more about experimenting and having fun over anything else. Be careful though, more than 1 or 2 hits will knock the ability from Kirby's body, and you'll have to quickly suck it back up before it disappears. Kirby begins his adventure in his home kingdom of Dreamland, and after murdering the universe's most miserable tree for the 537th time, heads to the castle of King Dedede. I'd guess he's checking here first because based on previous outings, there's a 50-50 chance he has something to do with this. Kirby and friends find an army of servants bringing all the region's food to Dedede, as is tradition at this point, and follow them into the throne room where the pudgy penguin gets pissed and attacks. We close down Buff Dedede's inevitable Fur Affinity account and notice a Jamba Heart plop out of him as he falls. With their only lead gone, Kirby and co board a warp star and start scouring the entire planet to find the source of the dark energy. This is gonna be a while, so how about another info dump in the meantime? You've no doubt noticed the parade of colorful doofuses following me around everywhere I go, so let's touch on them for a minute. Remember that uncorrupted heart shard that fell on Kirby back in the intro? That's actually the source of a new game mechanic. The main hook of Star Allies that sets it apart from other Kirby games is the Friend Heart, an evolution of the partner system from Kirby Superstar. In a very strange coincidence considering this game's proximity to Super Mario Odyssey, tossing out a Friend Heart lets Kirby befriend any enemy with a copy ability, even bosses if they've been knocked out first. Up to 3 allies can join Kirby at a time, and each one can be controlled by a human player using drop-in co-op. Partners can do just about everything Kirby does, from floating to throwing out their own Friend Hearts. For clear reasons, these ally characters can't use other copy abilities, but as a trade-off, unlike Kirby, it's impossible for them to lose their power from taking damage, unless you count, dying. But even dying as an ally is consequence-free. When Kirby dies, it triggers the loss of a life, regardless of surviving allies. When allies fall, they can be resurrected by Kirby just holding down a button near them. And even if you miss it and they disappear before you get a chance to save them, there's no penalty. This does mean you can sort of just cheat any boss fight by hiding as Kirby while your allies do the work, but you best be playing with other people if you try this, because the AI is dumb as bricks and it's not even worth trying with them. Allies are also used in combination techniques called friend actions that require 4 friends to be present on these special platforms, each one giving you a different method of locomotion to clear a specific area of a stage. It's very close to the transformations in Kirby's Epic Yarn, so I wonder if it was inspired by that game. After exploring all of Popstar and cleansing a possessed Meta Knight, Kirby and the gang find their way to Jam Bastion, a gigantic floating religious temple controlled by Highness that has crashed into the planet. As he makes his way up to the core of the fortress, Kirby faces off with each of the 3 mage sisters. Oh god, I'm gonna destroy these names because they're never said out loud. Francisca, Flamberge, and Zanpartisan. Each of the siblings controlling a different element. I'm gonna cut to the chase here. They have the most fucked up and out of place backstory for a game like this. And keep in mind, this is Kirby we're talking about. Fucked up and out of place is what this series does best. The girls' elemental powers come from life-threatening situations they had been saved from by Highness. Francisca was freezing to death after getting lost in a snowstorm. Flaming Bagel was trapped by a fire and was found screaming in despair as she nearly suffocated from the smoke and heat. And Zampartisan... oh dear, well, let me just read this lore entry. Once upon a time, a poor girl climbed a tower in desperation, only to be struck by lightning. As she breathed her last, a mysterious traveler appeared and unlocked her natural talent for lightning magic. Now, that's pretty terrible. Each of the sisters were in dire straits when Highness found and rescued them, and this is why, despite seeming to be somewhat sensible people themselves, they show an undying loyalty to him even though he's trying to destroy the universe and is clearly out of his goddamn mind. Zan is even willing to endanger herself and punctures the core of Jam Bastion when she loses to Kirby, in a last-ditch attempt to stop him from reaching Highness, reducing the entire fortress to a tower of crumbling scrap. Luckily, Kirby and his friends are able to work together and escape the death trap just in time, hopping on a warp star and flying off into unknown space. The altar where the Jamba Heart is being reconstructed is within view, but we'll have to defeat all of the powerful boss goons shielding the path. There's also a handful of extra planets available, and come to think of it, there's been extra stages this entire time. It's kinda like I held off mentioning them so I could structure the video a certain way. One of the biggest hallmarks of Kirby games is the plethora of secret rooms containing puzzles and collectibles. Find yourself a hidden door and hop inside to be met with some manner of challenge that usually requires clever use of your copy abilities and your allies to get the reward. Many of the rooms require the use of friend abilities, which are like a different take on Kirby's ability mixing from Kirby 64. A lot closer to Squeak Squad, actually, come to think of it. Friend abilities are secret team attacks that occur when one player holds up and is struck with the correct element. A lot of these are just elemental versions of physical weapons, fire swords, electric staff, wind hammer, stuff like that. Though there are a few unique attacks, like shooting plasma through water, or using ESP to control a giant stone. With the help of element fusions, even abilities I barely use, like ice or bomb, can create devastating weapons in the right hands. But before we move on, take heed of my warning before playing this game yourself. If you do not go into the options and disable the hint option, which is on by default, the game will put up signs in every room that tell you exactly how to solve them. So be sure to turn that off immediately. I played most of the game disappointed by the puzzle rooms always giving me the solution before I realized I could turn off the solution. Strange difficulty choices aside, Kirby and the Kirbettes break through the barrier and fly to the resting place of the nearly completed Jamba Heart, the Divine Terminus. That's probably not great. That's even not greater. To combat Void Termina, Kirby and his allies call upon the Star Sparkler, a cooperative rideable weapon created by merging the 4 Heroes of Yore's spears with the Friend Star. I know this is a lot of weird terms, but like I said, Kirby lore is fucking out there. Battling against Void Termina is a huge shakeup from the boss bashing we've been doing up until now. Kirby games always have some sort of flying shoot-'em-up stage near the finale, but Star Allies takes that one step further by making the fight fully 3D, dodging Void Termina's swings and blasts while trying to destroy the eyes that appear on his body. After dealing enough damage, the mask will drop, revealing the god's innards, where Kirby and the crew find the core of Void itself and combat it. I'm sure there's a ton of story here that I'm not piecing together properly. Void Soul can not only turn into an exact copy of Dark Matter, a lot of its attacks are very similar to Miracle Matter, but even more suspiciously, it looks a lot like Kirby, or at the very least, Kirby's race. Make of that what you will. Overall, the story mode is okay. Like a 7 out of 10. It's not amazing. I wouldn't call it the best Kirby story mode or anything like that, but a lot of the locations you go to look really interesting. The music is fantastic as always. I don't know what else you expect from a Nintendo game. And even if the main campaign is a little short, it's not nearly as short as everyone on the internet was acting like it was when the game came out. Besides, I think all the side content available kind of makes up for it. But hold your horses there, buckaroo. Just because we're finished with the main story doesn't mean we're finished with this game. Upon completing the main campaign, you'll unlock the extra mode, Star Allies Go. Star Allies Go is a shortened version of story mode with mixed up stages comprised of all the levels, in which you play as one of the partner characters the entire time, rather than Kirby. A run only takes an hour or two, but that's not a big deal, as you're meant to run through it with different allies, and different runs have different room selections. Another change that I feel really enhances the mode is the addition of level up parts that raise your attack, defense, or speed, replacing most of the puzzle pieces in the game. This gives a much greater incentive for combing through all the areas than just, a fancy JPEG. They're very nice JPEGs, but they are just JPEGs at the end of the day. There's even an original final boss made for this mode that differs from the story mode's final boss. But that isn't the end of it. Finishing Star Allies Go with a partner character will upgrade the mode, allowing you to play through the subgame as a Dream Friend. Dream Friends they're just the coolest friggin' thing. I don't know what else to say. They're the primary focus of the game's 3 major content updates. Dream Friends are, to put it simply, Kirby characters who have plot significance. Meta Knight, Bandana D, and King Dedede were all usable at launch, but as free updates rolled out, the Dreamland crew, Marks, Gooey, Adeline and Ribbon, Dark Meta Knight, DeRoche, or DeRoche, I'm not sure, Magalore, Taranza, and Susie were all added as new Dream Friends, each one of them having a dozen or so attacks, with most of them having multiple elements at their disposal, making them far superior to standard allies, and just overall more fun to play as. If you're a Kirby fan, I promise you'll be positively delighted at the amount of detail and care put into each one of them. These aren't just bonus characters, they're compact little representations of the games they originate from. We can't talk about all of them here, but for just some examples. Adeline is similar to the artist ability as a starting point, down to her pathetic little desperation attack from Kirby 64. Instead of flying, she's carried around by Ribbon and gains access to the Crystal Shard Shooter from Kirby 64's final boss. By holding up, you can paint an image of the end of level picnic, which will spit out random items. By pressing down, Adeline will create some of the monsters from her boss fight, which can be ridden for even more attack options. Marks spends most of his time in his regular cute disguise, bouncing on his ball and kicking it around, until he takes to the skies and gains the attacks from his boss fight, dashing face first, barfing out spheres of destruction, and they even gave Marks his crazy split open black hole thing. DeRoche not only has the triple star bell, but can summon the entire Squeak Squad, with each member having their own technique. All that's only the tip of the iceberg, and I cannot overstate how much I love these Dream Friends as a gameplay mechanic. I honestly wish this feature could be in every Kirby game from now on, because it just adds so much replayability with all the fun references and unique stuff everyone can do. It's just a shame you have to beat the main story first to unlock this mode, meaning even if you've beaten the game before and just want to come back for these updated characters, you'd better still have your save. The Ultimate Choice is the other mode unlocked when the story is completed. Most often referred to as the Arena in other Kirby games, Ultimate Choice is a boss rush mode where you're given a choice between every ability or Dream Friend in the game and limited healing items to defeat every boss in a row. If this sounds or looks familiar to you, it might be because Super Smash Bros. All-Star mode is based on this concept. Just another link between HAL's 2 main franchises. If you're only a fan of Smash Bros., seriously look into how much of Smash is borrowed from Kirby. It's actually pretty fascinating. This is even more apparent in Star Allies, as the Ultimate Choice also includes the Classic Mode difficulty selector from Smash 4 and Ultimate. The higher you go, the greater the opponent's strength and numbers. This might not sound like a big deal or anything, but any Kirby fan will tell you, the Arena is no fucking joke. If you go in expecting more basic, easy Kirby fare, you're gonna get destroyed. No more tossing out random attacks until the boss dies, you'll have to be a little smarter with your movement and ability choice. The guard, a nearly useless feature in story mode, is now essential in this mode, as is the spot dodge. You can either play solo or with friends, and, well, you're allowed to do whatever you want. I'll just say that playing with 4 human friends really diminishes the mode, for me anyway. If you're just going for the win, and you really wanna, you can just cheese your way through by picking 4 abilities or characters that can heal, and have Kirby hide the entire time while the other 3 battle it out. Remember that allies can be endlessly revived. You can't do this with the AI, because the AI friends are, like I said before, dumb as a sack of hammers, and never seem to create healing items even when you tell them to. I'd recommend playing the mode either solo or with AI allies, or at most one other human player to get the most out of it. But I'm not some snobby difficulty elitist. You can play the game however you enjoy it the most. The ultimate choice is the mode that keeps on giving too. Beating it on level 5 gives you levels 6 and 7. Beating level 7 unlocks Soul Melter difficulty, making you fight every boss in the game, including the final one, with a reduced health bar and weak healing items. Fun fact, the icon for Soul Melter is Devil Kirby, which isn't a copy ability, but actually a reference to the Kirby anime, from an episode where Kirby was possessed by a weird demon frog thing. Come to think of it, that episode also had a buff possessed King Dedede. Makes you think. There's also the fabled Soul Melter EX, but I'll mention that a little later. Overall, the Ultimate Choice is a great challenge, and like the arenas before it, is a great cap-off to your Kirby experience, giving you a chance to really test your skills and boss knowledge. A post-game mode, added as part of Star Allies' series of free updates, Heroes in Another Dimension takes place shortly after the ending of the main story, beginning when Kirby arrives at a gaping hole that's formed at the Jamba altar. Apparently, Highness somehow managed to resume his prayers, and this has created an energy imbalance that's torn the universal fabric. Hey, what do you know, thoughts and prayers actually did something this time. Kirby and his friends dive into the alternate dimension to collect the 120 now purified pieces of the Jamba Heart and put a stop to Highness and the Mage Sisters one last time. Heroes in Another Dimension follows trend with other Kirby post-game content in that it is far harder than the rest of the game. The mode is essentially a series of large puzzle rooms, each one requiring a different ability or dream friend, and smart use of their various moves to solve traps and collect as many shards of the Jamba Heart as possible. As cliche as it sounds, you'll have to move fast and think faster to nab all the hearts before you lose them for good. At the end of each section, you're given a heart tally for that region and come up against a far stronger parallel version of one of the game's bosses. After clearing all 4 areas, you'll be pit against a different final enemy, depending on the number of hearts you've collected. There is an occasional cumbersome issue that permeates this mode, though. A vast majority of the hearts can only be obtained in single-attempt, do-or-die situations, meaning almost every challenge has to be completed quickly and perfectly, or you'll lose the heart with no method of retrying. This is especially noticeable when the challenges expect you to use some completely pointless and otherwise unused property of an ability or ally, and to know when and how to use it without messing up a single time. Like knowing that Rick can jump off of enemy projectiles, kinda like Mario, or requiring very precise aiming with Kirby's charged boomerang, and knowing that the charged boomerang goes through objects. You know, this is the second Kirby game where I've been stuck because of Rick. These challenges aren't mind-bendingly tiresome or anything, but the fact that you have to either die or in some cases leave the entire stage just to get another attempt at some of these if you want the true ending is a pointless time sink. Just let me retry the room that I'm in instead of having to go find a spot to kill myself. That seems pretty reasonable, right? Overall, though, that is a minuscule problem, and I do enjoy the challenges themselves, that, unlike the main game challenge rooms, will actually test your problem solving and reaction speed. But even once you've bested Heroes in Another Dimension with all of the heart shards, there's still one last thing you have to do to truly finish Kirby Star Allies. Soul Melter EX is absolutely not screwing around. Unlocked by completing the previous Soul Melter difficulty and clearing Heroes from Another Dimension, Soul Melter EX is pretty much the same as Soul Melter with 2 vital changes. There's an even more powerful version of the last opponent, and every main boss is replaced by their parallel variants. As I've stated previously, a very patient team of human players could tough their way through this mode without much difficulty, revives, healing, and all that. But for the truly insane, there's always the option to tackle the massacre solo, a true trial of your ability to play a game originally designed for 6-year-olds. A colossal undertaking that rivals, if not surpasses, the true arena from Superstar Ultra. Ability and or character choice is everything here. You need to pick an ability that you're sure you can use competently against any boss in any situation. If you're looking for my recommendation, welcome to KNI John's totally arbitrary ability rankings. The following is not an objective list of the best and worst copy abilities in Kirby Star Allies. Rather, it is a strictly subjective list of my personal preferences and usage of the powers found in this game. We will not be taking ability mixes into account for this list. Each ability is judged solely on its base performance without any enhanced elements and the like. Let's get the screen nukes out of the way first. They're not eligible for rankings because they are more or less the same and are single-use abilities. They're helpful for enemy rushes and mini-bosses, but against large bosses, you'll be stuck taking out the other half of the boss's HP with stars, and they're entirely useless in the arena. For these reasons, I'm not giving them a rank at all, so they just go here as one entry. Crash gives you a 25 kill streak, Carnival is death by dancing, Cook turns basic enemies into food, and Mike gives you 2 mini attacks followed by a big shouty explosion. Sleep is also going in this null spot because it's more of a joke ability than anything else and is rarely even seen in Star Allies. Everybody got it? Alright, on to the normal abilities. Sorry, not sorry about this one. Suplex is one of the few abilities that seems to be in every single Kirby game, and I have never given a flying backdrop of a fuck about it. Suplex suffers from a problem you'll see a lot on this list, in that it's annoying to use against bosses. See, bosses are the only part of a Kirby game where how you're attacking enemies actually matters. So an ability like Suplex, which is designed mainly for taking out regular enemies, ranks very low on my usefulness tier list. If you somehow don't know, Suplex is an ability that allows Kirby to dash towards an enemy, grab it, and then perform a few different wrestling moves on it. This pretty much always kills the enemy, and damages any enemies that their flailing body smashes into. This move can also be used on stars, but given it locks Kirby in place while he's attacking, you're better off just sucking up the star and spitting it out like normal while getting some distance from the boss. Also, there's this little kick you can do in the air, but most bosses in the game are vertical, spiky, or spinning weapons all over the place, so you should probably back the hell up, Chief. Seriously, why has this ability not just been dissolved into Beetle or Fighter yet? Before anyone gets confused, Whip isn't this far down because it's a terrible ability. In fact, from this point up, I wouldn't call any of the abilities bad. Whip's problem is that it's just a worse version of a few other abilities that are already in the game. Whip can toss out a flurry of whip cracks, or just one big charged whip crack that does nothing. Yeah, okay, that isn't true. The charged whip crack will grab any enemy and allow you to throw them in much the same way as Suplex, which makes Suplex a worse version of Whip, I guess. There's just no real reason for this ability to exist. Hey, look, it's another power screwed by its lack of boss usefulness. Spider is a new ability that I didn't even know existed on my first playthrough because it's given by an enemy that's been in Kirby for ages and never had an ability associated with it. I wasn't missing out on much. Spider's primary gimmick is turning enemies into web ball and then kicking them around the screen. Great for standard goons, but this obviously doesn't work on bosses, or even mini-bosses, leaving you with a pissy little web shot or this upward spike as your main damaging moves. Let's be upfront, Parasol is only here because it ruins the reflexes of my unconscious lizard brain. Parasol is a perfectly fine ability, a strike, a dash, it blocks some projectiles. My only gripe is that simply possessing Parasol changes Kirby's face-first downhill tumble to the earth into a slow, wobbly descent, killing all your momentum. Yes, you can just press down to cancel this effect, but there's a lot of jumping and flying in Kirby, so I'd prefer to just not use Parasol and save the trouble. One of Kirby's most iconic abilities this low is gonna be a controversial take. Let me explain. Just like Whip, Ice isn't a bad ability. Ice Breath, Freeze Dash, and this chilly little twirl are fine attacks, it's just These are all lesser versions of Fire's moves, which does everything Ice does but better. Mostly it's aerial attack that really should give some kind of invincibility frames considering its terrible range. Terrible range kinda sums up Ice in general, I guess. Yes, Ice can freeze enemies into slidable blocks, but killing regular mooks is easy with any ability, so it's not that big of a deal. That's an ability. Returning from Dreamland 3, Cleaning does just what it says on the can. Kirby can sweep in what might be the worst melee attack in the entire series, though his other moves call upon some of his old animal friends, which is a pretty nice reference, I guess. What saves Cleaning from being any further down despite its abysmal base attack is its special air dash where Kirby gets glomped and flies around in an invincible state while dealing damage. Bomb is an ability that lets Kirby throw bombs. No, hold your applause. You press attack once to pull a bomb out, and again to throw it. It's number 17, not because it's bad, but because it's very boring. It works when you need it, and it's easy to use. Oh, this is another one people won't be happy about. Fighter is a very in-depth ability, having a ton of different martial arts moves that mostly consist of physical attacks with Kirby's limbs. His tiny, stubby little nubs, meaning you have to be very close to enemies in a game where touching enemies damages you. You do have this Hadouken Kamehameha sort of technique, but it's hard to land when so many of the game's bosses jump around or just outright fly all the time. Cool ability, I just prefer to keep my distance. I can't even tell you why Ninja's here on the list. I just feel nothing about this power. Throw a bunch of kunai, stick to walls. It's been in so many Kirby games, and a lot of people love it, but I never find myself using it. I really just wish this was Mirror instead. Mirror just might be my absolute favorite copy ability in the whole franchise, and it never shows up for some reason. We keep getting Beam though, which is kinda close. It's come quite a ways from the original, frankly, useless design it had in Kirby's Adventure. The range of the beam itself is pretty good. You can charge up a huge blast, the dash attack is solid, and this air barrage of laser balls is really satisfying to use. You know, this is probably what Suplex should be, but now we just have two completely separate Beetle-related powers. Beetle is a relatively new power, but it's already growing on me. You get a flurry of swings with Kirby's large rhinoceros beetle horn, an upward or downward thrust with quite the range, and on top of that, you can impale enemies and toss them around. Beetle is more or less Whip and Suplex merged together and made better, so I'm all for it. Fucking adorable. A classic among classics. Sword Kirby is not only an aesthetically cool ability, it's also gotten quite a varied moveset over the years. Some of the most fun moves stemming from the fact that this ability is blatantly based on Link from the Zelda games. Not only can Kirby perform the charge spin, but he'll also shoot out a sword beam if he's at full health, just like in 2D Zelda games. But, John, you put Bomb all the way down at 17 for being a basic throwing ability. Yes, I did. But Cutter is a vast improvement to me for two different reasons. First off, the Cutter can be easily spammed by mashing B instead of the slower pull out and then throw rhythm of Bomb. Second, Cutter can be easily aimed mid-throw by just tilting the control stick, so you can even hit enemies who are above you from a safe distance without even moving. Just remember to turn around. Another simple one here. See, Fire used to be divided into two skills back at the start, Fire and Burning. A few Kirby games would either give Kirby Flame Breath or a Meteor Dash, but we've passed that at this point, and now both are combined into one ability. The Fire Breath is okay, especially now that it can be aimed and extended just by pushing the stick, but the reason I put Fire so high up is just because I really like the Burning Dash. It gets you moving faster, making it great for regular stages, and its invincibility frames and range make it good for blowing through bosses. It's not higher because some of the later bosses have crazy big hitboxes or attacks that you'll probably get caught in as soon as the dash dies down. Artist is the copy ability equivalent of one of those inedible gray protein bar survival things. It's not enjoyable, but hey, it'll keep you alive longer than the other shit you've been shoveling in your mouth, Kirby. Almost all of Artist moves have the near-death sentencing side effect of forcing you to stand in place on the ground. Paintbrush strokes, which will bolt you in position, a screen nuke referencing the paint power from Kirby Superstar, then there's the two different types of paintings Kirby can create. An offensive painting, which creates NES-style drawings of various characters to attack for you, and far more important to my food bar analogy, a healing painting that creates a copy of Fridge Kirby to drop healing items. It isn't infinite, it does have to recharge after every use, but still, that's the only reason this power has to be in the top 10 on this list. Healing in the ultimate choice is such an incredible boon that I can't not put it this high up, no matter what the damage side of the ability is capable of. Stone Kirby is the original cheating ability, and that's quite the feat considering that all this ability does is turn Kirby into a rock. So, what's the big deal? Well, Stone Kirby is completely invincible in his solidified state. It may take ages, but you can whittle down almost any boss in any Kirby game with stone and enough patience. Bonus points for the huge variety of statues and references on display as well. Staff is a brand new ability that I would describe as sword on steroids, or maybe a different kind of medication. The range is amazing, reaching almost across the whole screen, both vertically and horizontally. This pogo move is a little on the useless side due to how open setting it up leaves you, but it's still a neat attack. A welcome addition to Kirby's ability roster. Hope to see it in future titles. Personal preference is really coming into play here. So, Wing isn't a great choice against bosses, it's serviceable. It has a projectile and a few different dash moves. That's not what I'm here for. I'm here for Kirby's enhanced flight with Wing equipped. To accommodate 4 players, levels are so huge and open in Star Allies, and it gets kind of annoying at times. But with Wing, mid-air movement is so fast, fluid, and precise that it's my #1 go-to for getting through regular stages. The fact that the flapping damages enemies is a nice bonus that helps you shake off any little pests that might be in your way. It's just really strong. That's the only reason it's #4. Hammer is incredibly powerful, and if it weren't for the fact that its range is so short, it would without question be the best copy ability. But as is, it's a little too cumbersome to hit aerial bosses without accidentally damaging yourself. I gotta say, I didn't think a second new ability would make it this high on the list. Certainly not #2. While I don't care much for Earthbound, ESP is a clear-cut reference to Ness. Specifically, Ness from Smash Bros. ESP Kirby's main attack is pretty much the same as PK Press. A large ball of psychic energy comes from Kirby's head that gets stronger the more you charge it, before finally exploding. This big purple orb is incredibly powerful and hits multiple enemies. And while Kirby does have to stay in place to use it, he'll be suspended wherever you started, making it easy to hide in a corner while you guide the attack. ESP also has a perfect guard that will let off a counter explosion if you time it properly. The only reason ESP isn't #1 is because it leaves you open. And on bosses like Kracko, there really isn't anywhere safe to charge up the attack. Still a top tier ability, regardless. Returning after all these years from Kirby Superstar, Plasma is my favorite copy ability in this game. Its beauty is in its simplicity. Plasma fires bolts of electric energy that can be strengthened by generating static around Kirby's body. Wiggling in place does the trick. There's 4 levels of charge, with the final one being a huge fuck-off ball of plasma that tears across the field. This also translates to 4 different upward attacks, the final of which is also pretty devastating. I know this is a boring choice to some of you. All of the myriad of interesting movesets available, and I picked the one that just shoots balls of Mountain Dew. But that's the wonder of opinions for you. If you disagree, and I highly suspect you do, feel free to let me know your favorite or least favorite copy abilities in the comments. I'm interested to see what abilities other people love using. Unless it's Suplex. Fuck Suplex. You know, guys, I usually spoil everything around here with a 2-hour-long rambling behemoth of a video. That's sort of my jam, but not this time. There are a few secrets like the HAL rooms, secret levels, hidden playable characters, and the to-be-expected Kirby tradition and ultimate final boss. In fact, there are 3 secret final bosses in this game. One for completing guest star mode, one for buckling down and beating Soul Melter EX, and one for completing Heroes in Another Dimension with 100 of the 120 hearts. Collecting 100 hearts and heroes will also lead to the game's true ending, and even more characters to play as. Some of these things are just so much cooler if you experience and unlock them yourself, and I think it'd be a waste to spoil it here, especially since I'm recommending you play the game. Honestly, if you're like me and you wrote off Star Allies as a mediocre rushed out Switch game lacking in content, pick it back up, install those updates, and I think you'll be pleasantly surprised to find a lovingly crafted tribute by HAL Laboratory to the little pink puff they and us have been supporting all these years. Yes, the game should have had that content at launch. I understand people's frustration with this live service, we'll fix it later with updates mentality, but Kirby Star Allies in its finished state is a great note for classic 2D Kirby gameplay to potentially go out on. I can't prove this, so take it with a grain of salt, but Star Allies feels like a last hurrah of sorts. Bringing back all of the main characters, all the references to the series' history, even the final boss, is tied in some way to most of Kirby's previous enemies like Dark Matter. This potential finale idea is sort of the reason I decided to make this video about Star Allies in the first place. There have been many attempts in the past to create a fully 3D Kirby game, the next evolution in the franchise gameplay formula, but they've all fallen through in the past. But take a look at this quote from Kirby series director Shinya Kumazaki, found in the Kirby Star Allies art book. "I still try new things at work every day, talking with my colleagues about where to take the series next. Together with them, even if it's only to please a single fan, we're planning for the next stage of our future. The team is a culmination of the best aspects of the Kirby franchise, and we hope you'll look forward to what we have coming next." Now, it could just be translation fuckery, but it sounds like they might have something new in store for the next mainline Kirby title. Perhaps Star Allies is one more big celebration of what Kirby has been, before looking forward to what Kirby will be. Next year, 2022, is Kirby's 30th anniversary after all, so I imagine Hal's gonna want to do something impressive. Who knows? All I know is a major Kirby entry hasn't disappointed me before, so I'm confident that the next game will be as painfully cute and enjoyable as ever, even if it takes a couple updates to get there.